The evil Ligar has taken over the land of Argool. Rygar is a dead warrior resurrected from his grave to stop Ligar. Ligar and Rygar use the same Japanese characters because the Roman syllables for Rai and Lai sound the same in Japanese. So in the Japanese arcade game, Ligar and Rygar are the same guy, the villain, and the hero is known as simply the legendary warrior. The NES version used Rygar for the hero, Ligar for the villain, and renamed the whole game to Rygar. Pretty fun stuff. Rygar was originally released in Japanese arcades as Warriors of Argus, and is vastly different than its NES counterpart. While the main character and his famous weapon, the Diskarmor, remain the same, the layout of the game is completely different. Warriors of Argus is basically an arcadey side-scrolling platformer, and Rygar is open-ended, more like a Metroidvania, where players must explore the map to find where to go next. The game itself is linear, but finding the line is the hook. The game is cryptic, with the narrative essentially drip-fed through the manual and random shrines in the world. It is kind of nice that the game lets you hit the ground running from the start without a bunch of cutscenes. In an action platformer, there really isn't a need to give me any motivation. I know to press right and start smashing enemies, but this game could have benefited from some exposition up front. Speaking of smashing enemies, Rygar uses a unique weapon named the Diskarmor. It's essentially a shield on a leash that Rygar can launch at enemies and smash them with. It's a nice and responsive attack, giving players the ability to unleash a fury of Diskarmor attacks at once. It's very satisfying. Similar to something like Zelda 2 or Blaster Master, there's an overworld and side-scrolling perspectives. When side-scrolling, you'll be constantly hounded by enemies that respawn almost instantly. Just keep moving. It's sometimes better to outrun the enemies than to remain in one spot and fight them off continuously. Enemies do drop health and other items, so you do want to engage them some. Most enemies are easy and take only a few hits to dispatch. The overworld can be a little bland. There are large segments where there's nothing to do but walk, and there's really no indication of where you should be going. You can visit shrines where these godlike statues give you some clues or direction, but it's not the most intuitive. And that's fine. Exploring in games can be fun, and you really can't do anything out of the order and get stuck that way, but you can get stuck finding where to go next. If you die, the game scares the crap out of you. It says game over and flashes the title screen, but worry not. Hit start again, and you're transported back to the last door you exited. A major bummer, though, is that the game has no password system or save feature, and that stinks, because depending on how lucky you get when exploring or whether or not you get stuck, you're going to be leaving your Nintendo on for a long period of time to eventually beat this one, unless, of course, you have another way of playing it. On your adventure, you'll find a number of items that will aid you in getting around. Like a Zelda game. You'll get a grappling hook for climbing up trees, a crossbow for getting across chasms, and some extra armor. The bosses are, well, often weird, but can be quite challenging. The nice thing is that you can replay them over and over, as, again, there are really no lives or continues. You just start back in the room where you got killed by the boss. But they can be very tricky, and require some patience. Even the first boss is a hassle, and don't even get me started on the last one. All in all, the game isn't bad, but it is frustrating. There are narrow walkways that can kill you. It's tough to figure out how to use the grapple in the overworld. You just kind of move around a little bit until you get it. Yeah, there it is. And doors, man. If you so much as come within an eyelash of a door, you're going in it. And sometimes you don't want to. You have to jump completely over them to avoid them. Why not just let me push up on the door if I want to go in it? It's also a little glitchy with screen artifacts. It suffers from flicker when lots of enemies are on screen. It's sometimes tough to restart large levels after a death, and the lack of a save feature or password system is a real big bummer. But it's still a fun, yet challenging adventure where finding the next item that will get you to the next part of the game is the hook. Not unlike Metroid, but obviously not as good. If you like Rygar that much, you can check out the Ps2 Reboot Rygar the Legendary Adventure, released in 2002 and ported to the Wii in 2009. It's a fixed camera, third-person action adventure that returns the handy Diskarmor weapon and a handful of other abilities. It's not bad. Well, that's been Rygar on the NES. Don't leave your Nintendos on too long, and thanks for watching.